You might believe that once the moon reaches her peak, the energy fades. That the intensity lifts, the emotions settle, and what was stirred begins to quiet. Maybe you assumed the full moon was the end of something. A release, a climax, and then a return to normal. But what if that's not how it works for you? What if the real shift doesn't happen at the peak, but in the silence that follows it? What if what the moon revealed wasn't the final message, but the beginning of a deeper unfolding? You may not have felt the power of that moment immediately. Some do. Others awaken only after the light begins to soften. Because spiritual energy isn't bound to dates. It isn't triggered by a calendar. It moves through resonance, not routine. It reaches you when you're ready, not when the world says you should be. So if you're here now, and something inside you still feels unsettled, if your dreams have been louder, your emotions heavier, your silence more sacred, this isn't coincidence. It's continuation. The moon may no longer be flooding the sky, but she left something behind. A frequency. A stirring. A message still echoing beneath the noise of everyday life. And if you can feel it, if you're watching this and thinking, I don't know why, but this feels meant for me, then trust that knowing. Because the energy hasn't left. The portal didn't close. And what was awakened in you isn't finished. It's only just beginning to rise. You may have expected the energy to be brief, powerful, yes, but temporary. You may have thought that once the moon poured her full light across the sky, what she stirred would settle, and things would begin to return to something familiar. But instead, you're still sensing it. Still feeling it. And not just in your mind, but in your body, your emotions, your dreams. Because full moons don't just end, they echo. The light may fade from the sky, but what it awakens in you continues to unfold long after the brightness has passed. There's a kind of restlessness that doesn't go away, no matter how still the world around you seems. Your thoughts move like currents beneath the surface, subtle but charged. Your sleep becomes unpredictable, or heavy with dreams that carry more weight than your waking hours can explain. Sometimes you wake up feeling like something happened, but you don't know what. A strange tightness in your chest. A sense that something invisible is working its way through you. This isn't random. It isn't residual. It's the continuation of what was activated. And it's more common than you think to feel the strongest pull not in the peak moment itself, but in the quiet that follows, when the insight begins to settle into the soul. Energy like this doesn't move in a straight line. It ripples. It deepens. What first came through as emotion or realization begins to integrate into the body in ways you didn't anticipate. That's why you may be feeling more sensitive now. More introspective. Or even more irritable. This is your system adapting to what's been unlocked. Not everything spiritual feels beautiful in the moment. Sometimes it feels like pressure. Sometimes it feels like fatigue. But it's always doing something, stretching your inner space, softening old edges, loosening what you were never meant to carry forward. And it's in this quiet tension that the deeper shift begins. The moon didn't just bring something up for you to witness. It brought something to life. And that life, that motion, is still continuing even if you can't yet name what's happening. You're not stuck. You're not lagging behind. You're inside the unfolding. There's something about this phase that's less visible, less dramatic, but no less real. It's not meant to be understood all at once, it's meant to be felt, processed, absorbed. You're not waiting for the next sign. You're still inside the last one. As you continue moving through this space, this charged and subtle atmosphere, you might notice that something deeper begins to stir. Not a thought. Not even a feeling. But a different kind of message. One that doesn't speak in words, but in symbols. And it begins where language ends. Even when the outer world goes quiet, something inside you doesn't. You may find yourself sleeping deeper than usual, or barely sleeping at all. But when sleep does come, it arrives differently. There's a weight to it. A density. And within it, images, faces, voices that don't feel like random noise. These aren't ordinary dreams. They carry a texture your waking self can't ignore. Some leave behind emotions so vivid they follow you for hours, long after the dream has ended. Others leave only symbols, half-remembered landscapes, flickering eyes, doors you never opened, names you've never spoken aloud. And yet, they feel familiar, as if they belong to something ancient inside you. This is not just the subconscious processing stress. This is your spirit continuing the conversation the full moon began. When the sky is no longer flooded with light, the soul shifts its language. The surface calms, but the inner realms open. And this is where dreams take over, not as distractions, but as carriers of messages that couldn't reach you in the noise of the day. In this space, your spirit is still listening. Still receiving. Still decoding. And the dreams are how it speaks. You may notice a certain theme repeating itself, an unresolved encounter, a place you've never been but know intimately, a person who says nothing but whose presence shakes you. These are not inventions. They are invitations. Your ancestors may show up, not always in recognizable form, but in energy. Sometimes in the eyes of a stranger in a dream. Sometimes in a voice you haven't heard in years. Past lives may slip through, not to overwhelm you, but to remind you what you already carry. Forgotten memories rise like echoes, not to haunt, but to harmonize. Divine guides may appear softly, subtly, in a gesture, in a phrase, in a flicker of light that never quite resolves into a face. None of this is for spectacle. It's not drama. It's alignment. Because while your conscious mind may try to move on, your soul remembers. Your energy field knows that the shift is still happening, and dreams become the bridge between what has been revealed and what still needs to be lived. Don't be surprised if the messages become more layered, more emotionally charged, more persistent. You're not being invaded by imagination, you're being handed keys. Some you'll understand immediately. Others may not make sense for weeks, even months. But they will leave a mark. Because what comes through dreams during times like this is not meant to be discarded. It's meant to root quietly beneath your awareness until it blooms in the physical. In these nights, the spirit does not rest. It reshapes, reorders, retrieves what was once hidden, and brings it into your sleeping mind, not to confuse you, but to complete you. There's wisdom unfolding in the symbols. Guidance hidden in the imagery. Healing in the unfamiliar. And if your dreams have grown heavier, stranger, more luminous, it's not a phase. It's part of the journey you're already walking, just in a language the waking world can't quite translate. There are moments when you feel something rising inside you, but you can't explain why. A heaviness in the chest. A wave of emotion building behind the eyes. Sudden heat in the throat, a flicker of irritation, an ache of tenderness towards something that didn't touch you just moments ago. The mind searches for a reason. But the soul already knows, this is not reaction. It's integration. After a powerful energetic shift, emotion becomes the medium through which the body catches up with the spirit. Not all transformation happens in vision or clarity. Much of it arrives through sensation, raw, unfiltered, and often without context. Emotional intensity may return without warning, not because something is wrong, but because something is being metabolized. The full moon revealed what needed to rise. But now, your system is doing the sacred work of letting it land. You might find yourself more sensitive than usual. You cry watching something small. You feel irritated by voices that never bothered you before. You pick up on energies in the room that no one else seems to notice. At times it might feel like a regression. Like the emotions you thought you had moved through are rushing back in. But this is not going backward. This is activation turning into embodiment. The feelings aren't returning, they're moving through you in a new way, asking to be released at a deeper level. The body is wise. It doesn't forget. Even when the mind thinks it's ready to move forward, the nervous system needs time to rewire. And during this phase, you may feel emotionally unsteady, not because you're losing ground, but because you're being rebuilt. Every tear, every pulse of anger, every flush of deep empathy is not a breakdown, it's a signal. Your spirit is teaching your physical form how to hold what it now knows to be true. Sometimes that truth comes through as grief, old grief, not always attached to anything recent, but real nonetheless. Sometimes it emerges as joy so intense it leaves you breathless. You're not being dramatic. You're being rewired. When the soul stretches, the emotional body is the first to tremble. It shakes loose what can't stay. And it opens the door for a more spacious kind of presence to enter. You don't have to label every feeling. You don't have to understand the source. This isn't about controlling the experience, it's about honoring it. Letting it move, as it needs to. Letting the body become the temple where the energy you've received can settle, live, and become real. There is a sacred intelligence in every wave of feeling. Not to trap you in the past, but to carry you fully into the present, aligned, open, human. The emotional field isn't separate from your awakening. It's the channel that makes it real. And what you're sensing now is not weakness. It's passage. It's how the invisible becomes lived. There comes a moment in the journey when the outer world begins to lose its appeal, not because you're bitter or burned out, but because something softer is calling you inward. Sounds that once felt familiar now feel too loud. Places that used to comfort now agitate. People you once surrounded yourself with now seem like they're speaking a different language. It's not judgment. It's not rejection. It's the spirit beginning to separate from what no longer resonates. You may find yourself turning down invitations, not because you're tired, but because something in your soul craves silence. You walk into a room and feel the weight of every voice. You reach for your phone and immediately want to put it down. The noise of the world, once background static, becomes unbearable. This isn't avoidance. This isn't depression. This is your spirit retreating, not to escape, but to listen more clearly. What once comforted now overwhelms. What once distracted you now irritates. And while the mind may try to explain it away, fatigue, burnout, overstimulation, your soul knows better. You're not disconnecting from life. You're reconnecting to truth. And that truth doesn't shout. It waits in stillness. In space. In the quiet chambers the world forgot how to enter. This is divine silence. And when it calls, it doesn't come with instructions. It simply wraps around you like a cloud, thick, weightless, undeniable. And like Moses, who remained in the cloud of presence long after the fire had passed, you too are being held in stillness. Not because you're lost, but because something holy is still unfolding inside you. Exodus 24 verse 18. The solitude you're being drawn into isn't emptiness. It's preparation. A sacred pause. Not a punishment, but a purification. In the absence of noise, you begin to hear things you couldn't before, the sound of your own knowing, the voice that doesn't rise in volume but in clarity. This is your inner mountain. And it's not found on any map. It's carved from silence, from surrender, from the quiet courage to be with yourself without distraction. You may miss the rush of external validation. You may long for someone to explain what's happening. But no one else can translate this phase for you. That's the point. This is between you and the presence that has been walking with you all along. The solitude isn't pushing you away from life, it's preparing you to return with deeper eyes, with a steadier spirit, with truth that can't be borrowed. So if you're finding yourself drawn to solitude, don't resist it. Honor it. Let it hold you the way only silence can. Because in this space, you are not alone. You are accompanied by something vast and ancient and alive. And in time, when it is complete, it will release you. But not before it leaves something behind, something you didn't know you needed, waiting to be heard in the quiet. There are moments when reality doesn't feel entirely solid, when the world you see and the world just beneath it begin to overlap. You may be going about your day as usual, but something strange keeps happening. A flickering light at the exact moment your thoughts turn inward. A shiver across your skin in a room with no breeze. Your dog suddenly alert, staring at a corner with focused stillness, or refusing to enter a space it walked through countless times before. You notice repeating numbers, 111, 144, 333, not once or twice, but enough that your spirit begins to take note. And your dreams, even if fragmented, feel like they didn't originate in your own mind. These aren't coincidences. And they're not mechanical malfunctions or random mental projections. They're signals. Subtle, persistent, intentional. The veil between dimensions doesn't always close when the moonlight fades. Some thresholds, once opened, take time to seal. And in that time, communication continues. You're not imagining this. You're perceiving it. The moon didn't just illuminate the surface of your life, it softened the boundary between this world and the next. And not everything that passed through that opening has returned. Some energies are still moving through your field. Some messages are still arriving. And if you've been sensing them, feeling watched but not threatened, guided but not sure by what, it's because the veil remains thin. Spiritual signs aren't always dramatic. Often, they're ordinary moments laced with unusual timing. A word overheard at the exact moment you need clarity. A symbol that follows you, uninvited but insistent. The sudden urge to pause, to change direction, to look up without knowing why. These are not disruptions. They are reminders. Something is still speaking to you, not through language, but through alignment. Through pattern. Through repetition. It's tempting to brush these things off, especially when no one around you seems to notice. But this journey was never meant to be validated externally. What the spirit confirms, the mind may struggle to explain. Still, your body knows. Your intuition feels it before your thoughts can catch up. And that quiet sense of being accompanied, of being observed by something ancient and benevolent, is not just sensation. It's truth moving through the unseen. Pay attention, not with paranoia, but with reverence. The signs that continue to appear aren't just there to get your attention. They're marking a trail. They're showing you that the energetic door hasn't closed, that your spiritual sensitivity is not a glitch, but a gift. And just because the sky no longer burns with lunar brilliance doesn't mean the atmosphere is empty. What opened during the last energetic shift continues to ripple. It hasn't stopped unfolding. And neither have you. Even as the energy begins to soften and the external world appears to return to its rhythm, something within you remains open. And the people around you can feel it, even if they don't know why. They sense something different in your presence. Something that unsettles them or draws them in. And their reactions, though unexpected, are rarely random. You've become a mirror. Not by choice, but by frequency. In this state of heightened sensitivity, your field reflects more than just light, it reflects truth. And truth, when unfiltered, has a way of provoking responses in others. You may notice people speaking to you more openly than usual, sharing stories they've never told anyone else. Strangers confide in you without hesitation. Friends break down in your presence, or confront you with emotions you didn't see coming. It can feel sudden, intense, and at times overwhelming. But what you're witnessing isn't personal conflict. It's collective release. The emotional web is still active. What was stirred by recent energetic shifts is still unraveling in the hearts of those around you. But unlike others, you're carrying the awareness to hold it. Not absorb it blindly, but feel it, name it, and allow it to move. That's why you're feeling so much right now. Not because you're emotionally unstable, but because you're transmuting energy from more than just yourself. Some people will be drawn to your light. Others will be agitated by it. Both are valid. Both are reflections. You're not just showing others who they are, you're showing them what they haven't yet faced. That's why conversations may turn unexpectedly deep, why tension arises in places you thought were safe, and why your own reactions feel larger than life. You're moving through a charged field, and that field isn't isolated to your inner world. It touches everything you interact with. During times like this, it's easy to feel like you're carrying too much. Like you're absorbing emotions that don't belong to you. And in some ways, you are. But it's not yours to hold forever, it's passing through you for purification, not permanence. You were given the sensitivity not to suffer, but to serve as a channel through which energy can become visible, move, and be released. You may feel exhausted after simple interactions. You may need more time alone, not because you're antisocial, but because you're energetically full. Your system is processing not just your own revelations, but the suppressed truth others are now projecting outward. This is not weakness. It's spiritual functionality. A system working exactly as it was designed to, sensitive, alert, permeable in moments of deep shift. And while you don't owe anyone your energy, your awareness of what's moving through them is part of your grace. The more you remain grounded in that truth, the more clearly you'll sense when to speak, when to stay silent, when to hold space, and when to step away. Because reflection is not about taking on someone else's storm, it's about staying clear enough to let the light pass through. There always comes a point, quiet, almost imperceptible, when observation is no longer enough. You've seen the signs. You've felt the shift. You've received the dreams, the visions, the inner surges that made it impossible to return to the version of you that once fit so comfortably inside the familiar. But now the energy has changed. It no longer whispers softly from the background. It leans in. It presses against the edges of your current reality, waiting not for acknowledgement, but for response. Because this is not just a moment of insight. It's a moment of decision. The awareness you carry now cannot remain abstract. It's no longer just about sensing what's unfolding, you're being asked to move with it. To shape it. To step into the form that your spirit has already begun to occupy in silence. The shift that once felt far off is now close enough to breathe in. And with that closeness comes a choice. Stay where it's safe, where you can keep decoding the messages without acting on them, or cross the threshold, and allow the truth you've received to rearrange everything. This isn't about rushing. It isn't about forcing something to happen. It's about recognizing that sacred energy doesn't show up to entertain, it arrives to initiate. And when it does, the space around you begins to change. The conversations that once fit now feel strained. The roles you once played now feel hollow. The parts of you that knew how to survive this version of life begin to loosen their grip, making space for something else to rise. There's a strange discomfort that comes with this transition. A sense of restlessness that doesn't ask for relief, it asks for realignment. You may feel called to let go of things that technically still work, but energetically feel off. You may feel drawn to speak truths you've held for years in silence. You may find yourself acting on a knowing that your logic can't explain. That's not instability. That's movement. That's awakening unfolding in real time. And with it comes clarity, not always in the form of answers, but in the unmistakable sense that you can't unsee what's been shown. What the moon revealed, what the dreams confirmed, what the silence emphasized, it all comes together here. In this moment. Not as noise. But as direction. You're not being asked to become someone else. You're being invited to embody more of who you truly are. Not the persona. Not the protector. But the presence, the core frequency that was always waiting beneath the noise. And now, with the veil still thin and your spirit more open than usual, that version of you isn't just visible. It's accessible. Whatever you do from here, let it be intentional. Let it be aligned. Let it come from the part of you that's already crossed over in spirit, waiting for the rest of you to follow. There comes a moment when the old rhythm no longer holds you. It doesn't break. It just stops feeling like home. You move through familiar spaces, but something subtle shifts, like walking in shoes that used to fit but now feel too tight. Your routines, your roles, even your thoughts begin to feel out of step, as if your spirit is walking to a beat the rest of your life hasn't caught up to yet. You may feel pulled in a new direction, even if that direction hasn't revealed itself in words or form. That's okay. Sacred realignment doesn't begin with clarity. It begins with surrender. With saying yes to the shift before you can define what it means. It begins with trusting that your soul hears a rhythm the mind can't translate yet. And that rhythm is holy. It is precise. And it is leading you where language cannot. This is not confusion. This is reordering. When the external world slows, it creates space for a deeper current to rise. You're not being asked to rush toward a destination. You're being invited to recalibrate your entire frequency so that your next step, when it comes, won't be from effort, but from alignment. It may feel strange at first. Like your motivation is changing. Like certain goals no longer inspire the same fire. Like people and pursuits you once poured yourself into now seem to drift quietly away. But you're not losing passion, you're shedding programming. What once drove you was tied to survival. What will move you next is tied to truth. Romans 8 verse 19 whispers, all creation waits in eager expectation for the revealing of the sons of God. And this moment, this strange, formless threshold, is part of that revealing. You are not just observing change. You are embodying it. You are not outside of the shift, you are the vessel through which it arrives. And that means your stillness is not stagnation. It's sacred tuning. It's the moment before the sound becomes music. The space before the next breath takes form. When the divine wants to realign your life, it starts by realigning your center. And that is the work you're in now, not to figure everything out, but to attune yourself to what is real, what is true, what is finally ready to lead. You don't need to force the next step. You only need to stay close to the current that's already moving within you. The choices you'll make soon, the changes that are quietly preparing themselves in the background, will not come from fear. They will come from knowing. From a frequency that resonates with who you've become, not who you used to be. This new rhythm will not shout. It will hum. It will feel unfamiliar, but deeply right. And as you begin to move with it, everything that no longer matches its vibration will naturally fall away, not in loss, but in liberation. You didn't miss it. Even if the sky has shifted, even if the calendar has turned a page, the energy didn't leave you behind. The moon didn't pass you by. It moved through you, and it left something living, breathing, unfolding beneath the surface. This was never about a date or a perfect moment. It was always about divine timing, about something eternal aligning with the part of you that was ready. If this message resonates, it's not by chance. It means the portal is still open within you. The shift is still active. The unraveling, the remembering, the quiet revelations, they're still finding their way through your nervous system, your emotions, your dreams. You're still inside it. And nothing is asking you to rush through this. You don't have to close the chapter just because the moment has passed for someone else. The unfolding is sacred. Let it continue. If something in this message moved you, leave a word in the comments. Write, I feel it. Not for me, but for the universe. Let it know you're listening, that you're awake to what's rising inside you. And if something has been stirring in your dreams or surfacing through your solitude, something you haven't had words for until now, this is a space where you can name it. Speak it. Let it be witnessed. If this kind of sacred insight is what your soul is drawn to walk with more deeply, cycle by cycle, sign by sign, feel free to subscribe. This journey wasn't meant to be watched from the outside. It's meant to be lived from within. And you were never meant to walk it asleep.